My name is Joe Reichard. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Saab Doctor. Today, we're going to be dropping the pan, pulling out the filter, the valve body, and the conductor plate, replacing the conductor plate, the plug, the filter, refilling the transmission, replacing the transmission cooler lines. What else do I have in that pile of parts over there? Yeah, that's all the stuff we're going to be doing in this episode. Oh, all on the ML55, so stay tuned. Okay, now one thing I'm going to add is, if you're using a hydraulic jack, be extremely careful. People that are fans of my Instagram page would have seen this picture. That is a picture of the jack that I was actually jacking up my wife's combi with, doing an oil change in the garage, since the shop is snowed in. And the jack actually collapsed while I was sliding a stand underneath it. So, be careful, always double check. If you're taking the wheels off, put the wheels underneath the sides of the car so you have something for it to fall on, just in case. But never, ever, ever trust a hydraulic jack and put yourself underneath the car. That's the worst thing you could do. Extremely scary. Anyways, now we're going to go underneath and start draining the trans fluid and drop the pan.
Alright, so this is the trans pan. With how rusty it is and with where this bolt is, this is the actual drain plug. I don't picture this coming out easy, and that looks actually pretty rounded out. So I'm going to try and get these star bits out. Some of them may be a bit more of a problem. Some of them may be easier. But we'll see what we can do. You can tell this trans line's been leaking pretty good too. So that's getting replaced, so that's good. So, yeah, let's get this off of here and see what this all looks like.
That was way more graceful than I expected. Alright, so you might ask, Joe, why are you doing this as more of a vlog instead of a tutorial like your Saab stuff? It's because there's 1,000 tutorials about Mercedes stuff all over YouTube. I am doing this more of a vlog of, this is what I'm doing, this is what I've done, and pretty much anyone can do this. A lot of people are afraid of Mercedes stuff. They feel like, you know, you have to be like a Mercedes master tech or something to work on it. I'm not. I'm definitely not. And literally I learned how to do this from some of the YouTube videos below on how to replace this. But it's super easy. Now, getting back to mine in general, this definitely needed to come out. The trans fluid needed to be changed. Fortunately, the seal was still good on the plug, which was what I was really worried about. Because what happens is, there's a couple seals. Let me grab the new plug. What there is there's a couple seals here and here, and sometimes these don't seal, and what happens is the trans fluid comes through this plug and wicks up into the TCM, which causes shifting problems. The last thing you want is your trans fluid wicking up to your TCM and causing shifting problems. So we're going to take this apart, clean everything up, put it back together. I'm actually not going to put it back together tonight because I want to go to the hardware store. I want to get some new bolts to put in because, I mean, those were just all crusty and whatnot, so we probably should just replace them anyways. That way, whether I'm the next person taking part or the next owner is or a tech or something, they have a little bit better bolts to put up with than I did. I like leaving stuff better than I got it. So let's get this all apart. All right, one of the big reasons why I'm glad I'm doing this, just look at all this stuff on here. All this soot, not soot, but all this just like breakdown from years and years. This is going to be a big thing. I'm going to make sure to clean all this stuff up when I pull it all apart. So, all right, let's get her torn down. Okay, so a couple things. You want to make sure to keep your solenoids in the same places that they were so you don't get them all mixed up. They need to go back where they came from. The other thing is, why do people replace these? Think about this. You have copper conductors in transmission fluid, and then you've got things like this. This is another conductor right here that's just all goobered over. So, you know, these things will stop responding, then your transmission will stop shifting. So that's why these get replaced. It's just a good maintenance item to do. So I want to do this. I want to do this that way. If I take it on a long road trip, if I sell it, I can use it as a, you know, a thing with the next owner and be like, hey, conductor plate's been replaced. So I'm going to clean up the valve body a bit. I'm not going to disassemble it. I'm going to obviously leave it exactly how it is, but I'm just going to wipe it down a little bit. Make sure any extra dirt, because like there was like, this was a little goobered up. Make sure that's just all clean. Then we'll put the new conductor plate on. Alright, so once you have this cleaned up, you can get your new conductor plate, snap it on. Obviously be careful about it, make sure you line it up right. I bought a genuine Mercedes one just for that reason. Then you can start putting all your solenoids back in. Just make sure you put them in the right spot and the right orientation. And then I was looking online, it looks like you torque these down to 71 inch-pounds or 8 Newton meters. So let's get her back together. That's actually 100% put back together, ready to go back in. Honestly, this is not a very hard job. So one thing I'm going to do, I'm actually not going to put this back in yet. I'm going to wait until I have all the bolts for the pan. Get the pan bolts. Once I have all those, I'll put this in, put it all back together. I'll probably have maybe a total of 2 hours invested in it, and that's me going slow, making sure I'm taking all the steps and doing them right. I know you can do it a lot quicker than that, but you know, this is my first time with one of these. I've watched a couple videos. I had a lot of anxiety doing it at first before I started digging into it because I've never taken a valve body out of a transmission before. So I was really, really worried about it. So I guess the next time you'll see me, I'll have a different shirt. So cue future me. All right, so what I'm going to do with this pan, you can see it's all rusty on the bottom. I'm actually going to take it. I'm going to hit it. I'm going to hit it with the wire wheel. I'm going to put some rust converter on it, and then we're going to paint it black. Mainly because I don't want this pan to rust through. That would be pretty bad. I don't know if these are available anymore, but whether I'm owning it, which I probably won't, or the next owner has it, if this rusts through, it'll be huge problems for this transmission. So let's clean it up a bit. Alright, now you might be questioning why I hit this with a wire wheel before actually spraying it down with rust converter. I just want to make sure that if there are any big flakes or chunks of rust, get that off first. Now I'm going to just wipe it down. And I'm just wiping it down to get any of those rust particles off that are like stuck to it. Alright, now since that's all wiped down, I'm going to actually take it and I'm just going to hit it with some rust converter. Alright, now we're going to wait a few minutes. I'm actually going to turn the heat up here in the shop so there's no problems with this adhering. Alright, now let's put one more light coat on. Alright, now I'm going to let this sit and dry, and then I'm going to come back in a day or so and paint this black. I know it's black already, but I actually grabbed some gloss black engine paint that'll be perfect on this. Alright, we're 24 hours later and completely dry, cured. Actually looks really, really good, which I'm excited for. So, So, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take it, I'm going to spray it with some Rust-Oleum, which I have somewhere, I don't know exactly where. So I'm going to grab that, put a couple of coats on, let her dry overnight, and then tomorrow, valve body goes back in, and this thing can get back on the road. Alright, I just did 2 quick coats of Rust-Oleum after the rust converter. This is going to look way better than it did, and it's going to be good for the next person, so that way, you know, it just doesn't rust right through that oil pan, which I've seen it happen before. So, we're going to let this cure overnight, and then we'll work on the beast tomorrow. Okay, so it's a few days later. This paint is completely dry. Yeah, it doesn't look very smooth, but it's all protected now, and it looks at least decent. The rust is stopped because of that rust converter. So we'll be able to put this back on, no problem. And this was already black like that, so not like I painted that. But yeah, looks pretty good. Excellent. Okay, so first up, we're going to put the valve body back in. Now, I have had this wrapped since it's been sitting, but it's all ready to go, new conductor plate and all. So we'll just take this, put it back in, torque it up, and then put the filter and then the pan back on, and then we can put the new transmission lines on and fill the trans up. Now, when you do this, you want to make sure that this stuff is all lined up. Because if it's not, you're going to have problems. You need to make sure this, you need to make sure this is lined up, and that this yellow thing here has that shifter linkage in it, and don't break either one of those. That could be a big problem. Then you just take them and torque them down. Same torque spec as the all the stuff on the top. Alright, now the valve body is all back in. Don't forget, we still need to put the plug end on, and we're going to put the trans pan on next. Okay, so next up, this is where we install our genuine Mercedes gasket and filter, so that's plus. The other thing I did, I went to the hardware store and I grabbed a bunch of brand new bolts. The problem with these were that a lot of these original trans bolts, it's going to be hard to see, but those are all rounded out. So I grabbed a bunch of brand new bolts. These should be a lot better. Plus, you know, here in the Rust Belt, these hex heads are or not hex, but Torx get very, very rusty. Where a nice 10 mil will be good to go, so we won't have to worry about this as much anyways. So I'm gonna put the transpan gasket on the transpan, and then I'm gonna put the filter in the trans, and we'll get it all bolted back up. Okay, now don't forget when you're putting this back on, you need these little standoffs for this, because these are what actually holds the transpan up. And this is torqued at the same torque as the shift solenoids and the valve body. After you torque all of them down, you find the one that you misplaced, and you remember where that one goes. Whoops, that wouldn't have been good. At least I caught it before this all went back together. This one actually fell out of my hands, and I was laying on top of it. I thought I had grabbed it out of the transpan. Alright, now that that one's in, that's good. Next we pop in the filter. Just very easy to pop in. That's a nice, let's just make sure that's in right. Alright, perfect. That's in right. Then we figure out which way the pan goes. Looks like the pan goes this way. Okay, so before you put this corner in, like I just tried doing, you want to make sure you put the new plug end in, or the new plug in, and then plug the plug back into it. Alright, so I actually took a look online, just to make sure I wasn't going to break this. I put a little bit of extra lube on the O-rings. Once I get this lined up again, just need to give it a good hard push, is what I need to do. Okay, so I actually got this portion in off camera because the frustration was real. This just plugs right in here. It's all plugged in. Then we can put this corner back in. Then torque the pan down. Alright, and the transmission pan is all back together. So that is, you know, step number one is done. Next up, we're going to figure out how to get these transmission lines out. That'll be the fun part. Okay, so it looks like, whoops. So it looks like to remove the transmission lines, we remove a bolt here and a bolt there, and it should just come right out after we remove the two on the trans. So this should be relatively not that bad. Okay, so I didn't realize that the camera battery died, but I've got these all loose. Now all I need to do is remove the two bolts that are holding it on yet with the crush washers and whatnot. Well, gotta say, that went smoother than I expected. Alright, so, yeah, these transmission lines have definitely seen better days. I mean, they're leaking from just about everywhere. They're rusty. If there's a fitting, they're leaking from it. So, you know, something replacing these for the next owner was probably a really nice thing of me to do and a good thing. Because it's one less thing that anyone will have a problem with, and it's honestly one less thing anyone can complain about when they're looking at it. And the brand new ones, I mean, they look brand new. So I'm going to pop these in, and then let's get some trans fluid in it. Okay, so I didn't realize that I forgot to hit record on the GoPro, but the transmission lines are in, so that's a plus. So I can put, I'm going to put approximately a gallon, so 4 quarts of trans fluid in to start with. I still need to put the serp belt back on, which should be relatively easy, but I need that and coolant and power steering fluid, and after all of that we can start it up and see how bad it leaks. So let's let's get to putting that SERP belt on. Okay, so this will be impossible to see. We're just going to route the serpentine belt. And the cool thing is, since the tensioner is new, it actually still has the pin in it, so that'll be super easy. This is where I need a routing diagram, because I can't remember which way it goes. And I'll actually put a routing diagram on the screen at this point. Now I just need to pull the pin out, which means I need to grab the right attachment for the tensioner pulley. This is actually easier to get from the bottom, funny enough. Alright, pin's out, the belt has tension. I'm going to start with pouring in the trans fluid, which we're actually just going to fill through the dipstick hole. You have to remove the plug, and then top off the coolant, throw some power steering fluid in, start her up and cross our fingers. For some reason today I can't find a funnel between the big red funnel and the little yellow funnel, but the little yellow funnel will do. Alright, so now we've got trans fluid, we've got coolant, we've got power steering fluid. The coolant seems to have stopped chugging, if you will. So this is where we started. And cross our fingers that nothing leaks. Alright, so we'll just connect up the battery and wish it luck. Okay, or maybe the battery's dead. I'm not 100% sure right now, actually. Alright, so right now this battery is reading 9.6 volts, so we're going to charge it up for a bit, or I may actually grab a different one and swap it out. We'll see. Yeah, this battery's bad. It spiked from 9.6 to 15.8 volts, so we're going to pull this out. I'm going to grab a different battery that I have sitting around, and we'll see if that starts it. There we go. That one gave me a little bit of life when I put her on. All right, we should be able to start her up. Okay, so we've got a little bit of smoke from some transmission fluid that I spilled burning off, but that's not that bad. And the radio is obviously turned up to 11, so I'm going to go turn that off quick. Otherwise, it looks like nothing's leaking. Alright, so let's take a look at everything we fixed. The thermostat right there is not leaking at all. That is dry, which is amazing because we had to tap and drill. This radiator hose, not leaking on either end. That's great. That power steering hose below was a little bit dirty to begin with. That does not seem to be leaking either. These two transmission lines are dry, which is good. Hopefully you can actually hear me. The cooling system is sucking down some coolant, and this hose is, well, it was firm before, it got soft again. It'll probably get firm again as it keeps bleeding and burping through the system. So that's good. Go underneath here. These hoses are looking good. That hose is good. Oh, there's actually... Oh, nope. I was freaking out. I thought there was trans fluid all over that. That's just because I used gloss black paint. That fitting is not leaking. And that fitting might be weeping a little bit. I might have to tighten that one up. But for now, we're going to leave it alone until we kind of look through it. Now, one interesting thing is this heat shield is rattling. I thought I had catalytic converter rattle, but I think that it's just been that heat shield the whole time. I'm going to get out from under here because being underneath a running vehicle is kind of scary, to be honest with you. Alright, so the ML has gotten up to temperature. It's not leaking anything, and now all I really need to do is kind of like set the fluid levels and whatnot, and it's good to go. Well, and put the headlights and whatnot back in. But other than that, it's good to go. Alright, we are in the home stretch of getting the ML finished with everything we've taken apart. I do have a few extra things that I'm going to put back in off camera, like wheel liners that I took out 2 years ago, the back hatch cover that the previous owner took out, those kinds of things. But all we have left is headlights and the engine cover. I've taken it for a drive. It actually drives great. Before it would have a hesitation on downshift, so you were slowing down to a stop sign and it would hang on to like second or third gear sometimes. It doesn't do that anymore. So, fixed the problem. Unfortunately, check engine light is back on. So the next owner is going to have a check engine light because I'm not fixing that. I guess that'll be a negotiation thing. Other than that, let's get to getting these headlights back in. I'm going to check and see, now the two studs that I broke, I'm going to see if those are integral for actually putting the headlights back in, or if I can just leave those without replacing them. Because then I have bolts for them. I'd cut them, put the bolt in, either tack weld it or just like put a nut on it, tighten it up, and see what it does. But let's see if those are alignment pins or if those are actually necessary. Okay, so from the looks of it, the extra pins on the bottom are just a little bit of German over-engineering. So I'm just going to leave those out because the headlight is completely in place without it and doesn't even move. So let's get the driver's side one in and pretty much be done with it. And of course, last but not least, have to put the engine cover back on. And after all of that, it's done. I mean, that's it. We've done a radiator, a conductor plate, thermostat, which is how this originally all started off, trans lines, radiator hoses, all kinds of stuff that I can't even remember the whole list. But now I'm going to do a few small things, and then I'm putting it up for sale. I'm going to take the money from this. I'm going to fund getting the 9.7s cam and whatnot done, so that way that can be back on the road. I actually, funny enough, just sold my camper, which is one of the reasons why I had this in the 9.7 was to tow that. But I'm going to, I'll end up buying another camper at some point. So sorry for the big lag between videos on these last couple between this and the last one about the 9.4. It has been a very, very, very long couple of weeks with, losing Turbo, with actually getting a new puppy. Her name's Eleanor. Named after the Shelby GT500 in Gone in 60 Seconds, and she is a little bit crazy, but thus far she's been a really good dog, so I can't complain at all. Hopefully I can start getting my schedule back normal with video releases, get back to the 9000, get back to some Saab stuff. I know I'm going to have probably a little hiatus on the 9000, which I know I've had for a little bit. But I need to do some prep for Saabs at Carlisle, which my wife and I are going to, and we're taking the lime yellow car, so I just need to make sure that's all 100%. And with it being spring, a lot of cars are coming back out of storage, so I just need to, get those all up to snuff too. So, might be doing some stuff on that, but the 9000 is definitely high up in the queue. Just need to get back at it, and that's why it's a long-term project. It's kind of that project that's always there that we kind of go back and forth between. So, anyways, I have rambled too much. Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this, like, share, subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And Saab on, folks.